Fuliza. Hey, Fuliza. Hey guys. Anyway, this Fuliza issue is really not funny, even though if I make a song out of it. That is a suggestion for the musicians. This is not a laughing matter. I was just trying to welcome you to Kshs MoneyMatters as usual with some joy and happiness and positivity and good energy. But whatever it is we're talking about, we have to bring positive energy into it. So, Fuliza hit 1.2 billion per day. Kenyans are borrowing 1.2 billion Kenya shillings a day. Now, let's take a moment to think about that because that's crazy. Why is this happening and what can be done about it? That is the question. As a finance coach, this is something that is saddening for me. And just as an individual, a young person who is trying to build wealth, this is something that shows how much and how far we are from achieving that wealth building capacity and mindset. Debt is slavery. I always tell people debt is slavery. Let's start from that perspective. I have never sat down and encouraged debt because most people are not disciplined enough to actually use debt the good way. Of course, we have two types of debts. We have the bad debt and we have the good debt, right? But Fuliza is mainly a bad debt. It's very rare that you can use Fuliza to actually do something important. Some people would for sure. I'm not saying it's completely impossible, but the fact that it is actually borrowed on M-PESA based on transactions that we have every single day, mostly consumerism, then most of the times you will not use it to do anything that makes you money. But some people can do it. Even though if you do it, you have to do it within a short period of time, return the money because the interest is quite high. So you have to do it in a way that you earn way more than the interest that they're charging you. And in that sense, it makes it very difficult to get that money within that period and avoid the high interest they will charge you on that money. So 99% of Fuliza loans are bad debts. So we're going to start with what's happening and why are people borrowing. And number two, what do we do? This is just a discussion. And please take part in this discussion. Let me know what you think. Do you borrow? How do you pay? How is the interest rate of Fuliza? Does it affect your finances? If you have any idea, any opinion about Fuliza, please comment below. Let's have a discussion. I am open to discussion with this issue because I know people are in very difficult financial situations and they're not borrowing because they want to. They're borrowing sometimes because they have to. So let's have a candid discussion and then see what can be done among the youth to avoid this abyss that we headed for. As usual, this Kshs MoneyMatters, and here we talk about the money mindset, how to make that money, how to enjoy that money, how to manage that money, how to invest that money, and how to assure yourself of a lifetime of income. Basically, financial freedom. So guys, let's talk about Fuliza and borrowing. Like I mentioned before, I always say debt is slavery. Debt has hindered so many people from building wealth because the kind of interest you're always charged on debt is very high. And that makes it very difficult for you to attain certain financial goals because anytime you try to do something that's giving you money, debt is pulling you back. That is like that heavy burden that you have on your neck. So anytime you try to stand up, it's pulling you back down. Anytime you try to stand up, it's pulling you back down. It's a very difficult burden to carry, especially if you are trying to achieve certain financial goals. And this is something that I have to mention over and over again. If you are trying to achieve financial goals, if you're trying to just start your life, your financial journey, don't begin on debts. One of the principles of investing or one of the principles of building good financial health is avoid consumer debts. If you're going to get debts, you should get good debts, which are debts that you use to invest in things like houses that in the long run will become good assets. That's a good debt. But again, even good debts can only be taken by people who have the right financial foundation to take those debts. So that's something you have to consider. Not all good debts are good to everyone. Every single person has a particular point in life when they are able to take a particular debt and when they can't. So sometimes you could say, okay, I will take money for mortgage, but you've taken too much debt on that particular mortgage. Therefore, you are tied to it for the next 40 years. You can't do anything meaningful because you are paying mortgage. Yes, it's a good debt in principle, but it's not a good debt if you're not in a position to have the cash flow to offset it as soon as possible and then own the house so that the house can start giving you back some money in terms of equity or whatever it is. There is good debt, like I've said, there's bad debt. Fuliza is falling under bad debt. The reason why Fuliza is happening is because most people are broke, dead broke. The economy is not functioning, there's high unemployment rate, The leaders don't just care about anything else. And people are trying to survive. People need money to survive. And the financial institutions have seen a route to get money from these poor people. And they're using it properly because the Fuliza is controlled by Safaricom, which is one of the biggest companies, KCB, one of the biggest banks in Kenya and in East Africa, and NCBA. These three financial institutions are controlled by the elites. So these people are not sitting down and deciding, okay, let's help Kenyans make money. No. They do not sit down in a boardroom and decide, okay, let's come up with a way in which you're going to be helping these people and making their lives better. No. They come up with policies and ways in which they can get more money from you so that they grow and do business. These are businesses. They thrive on such situations. We must be careful when we get such opportunities because the way you use it will determine your financial life in the future. So the reason why this is happening is because people are broke, the economy isn't doing as well, the manufacturing sector, which is supposed to give people jobs, is basically dead. And the country is in huge debt, and therefore most of the money that they get does not go into industries, into manufacturing, into things that actually improve the economy. Those things go into paying off debts and importing some more stuff that do not come from our own industries. Therefore, people have nowhere to get their livelihood. They have to find ways of making money. And these institutions have seen a chance to make that money. Now we know why it happens. We know why people are taking debts. People are trying to survive, basically. It's a very simple economic theory. People are just trying to survive. They are in this position where they can get quick money with the belief that they will return the money. This is just an unending hole because you will end up borrowing so much money that you can't really give back on time and as required. So what can we do about this? There are ways in which you can control borrowing. And it's very simple. I'm going to just be talking to individuals here. If you want to borrow any money, what are some of the things you need to consider before you take Fuliza? What are some of the things you need to consider so that you don't get into the same cycle of poverty and cycle of debt that is going to catch up with most young people? Number one, before you borrow, you need to know whether it's a good debt or a bad debt. Like I mentioned, are you borrowing to consume or are you borrowing to invest that money and make something out of it? Now, like I said, Fuliza, 99% of it is not good debt. So just forget about borrowing from Fuliza if you want to invest somewhere. You would rather follow the normal channels of borrowing from a normal bank and have a very clear plan, very clear objective of how you're going to achieve your goals. So you must know, are you taking a good debt or are you taking a bad debt? If you're taking a debt to buy food, to buy certain things, to buy yourself clothes, then you're definitely not on the right track. Number two, anytime you want to take a debt, ask yourself, do you really need that debt? Is it that important? Can you survive without it? Are there other options for you? That's one thing you always have to know. Because sometimes we rush in taking debts because of the availability of that debt. So because that debt is there, I'll be like, okay, anything goes wrong and I'm off to the debt because it's available for me. But if this opportunity wasn't available, would you have survived that situation? What other ways would you have used to get money to cover whatever it is you want to cover? So always ask yourself, is it really necessary to take this debt at this particular time? And can I survive without it? If it wasn't there, what would I have done to achieve whatever I want to achieve? That's a question that I want every single person watching this video to always ask yourself. Before you take any debt, ask yourself, do you really need that debt? Then, number three, you want to consider, can you actually afford to borrow? This is something most people don't ask. The same way you go to a shop and ask if you can afford to borrow, to take something from the shop, or you can afford to buy some clothes, or you can afford to buy some shoes, or you can afford to buy anything, you need to ask yourself, can you afford to borrow that money? Because when you are borrowing, it means you want to be paying that money. Will you pay the whole debt? Will you be able to make the monthly payments required? Will you be able to make the payments within the period required? And do you have enough cash flow that will cover that debt sufficiently without making you go for more debts so that you can cover this particular one? So it is very important that you ask yourself that question. It's very important you ask yourself if you are in a position to afford that kind of borrowing. Will you be able to afford it? Will you be able to make the payments? Because if anything goes wrong, or if you're taking a debt from a precarious position whereby you are not stable financially, anything happens with your job, with your cash flow, with your business, with whatever it is you are relying on to pay the debt, then you're basically in the abyss I was talking about. You get to that hole and then it becomes just a cycle and a big cycle. It becomes way difficult. If you cannot afford it, forget about it and find other ways in which you can make that money or avoid that need altogether. Another question is, can you use other savings or other means to achieve what you want to achieve? Which is something I've already mentioned, but you want to ask yourself explicitly, are there other means of making that payment, and there are other ways of achieving that goal. And then you want to understand the risks of every single debt that you take. And this is one thing that most people don't even think about. What are those risks that the debt come with? Because there's nothing for free. Nobody, like I said earlier, nobody sits down and decides to help you. Everybody's trying to help themselves. Everybody's trying to make money. Every bank is trying to make profit. So they don't go into a boardroom and decide to help you. So you also need to analyze every single thing you do with them and ask yourself, what are the risks that come with this particular debt that I'm taking? So get to know the details of debt you're taking. Get to know, before you take that debt, get to know every single term, every single condition, and everything that can actually go wrong and put you in a position whereby you cannot pay that debt and therefore at their mercy. So understanding the risks of a debt will help you achieve what you want to achieve much better. And then you need to also look at your financial situation before you take any money. Can you actually support a debt? And this is different from you looking at the fact that you can afford it. No, you also need to look at your financial goals in the long term. If this debt is going to affect some goals that you have in a major way, then it's not the right one for you. So you could be doing well, you have everything, you can afford the debt, but taking that debt is going to affect the short term, medium term, and the long term financial goals that you could have. Basically, it could be affecting some of the financial plans that you have, then that is also not the right debt. So these are questions that you need to always ask yourself before you take that Fuliza. Please. I know it's not easy, but even if one question just pops up your head, it can actually help you in making a better decision for your finances. And then if you decide to borrow, you need to always know how you're going to borrow. Are you going to take a personal loan? Must you take Fuliza, or you can go to a bank and take a proper loan? What are the deals out there? What are the deals that are available? What interest rate is Fuliza charging me? What would the bank charge me? What would the circle charge me, for example? What would my friends charge me, for example? So you need to look at other deals. You need to look at other possibilities. You could be able to borrow from friends or family without having the repercussions of paying with the interest. But again, this has been abused by most people, so families don't trust each other, which I understand very well. And one person does not support borrowing between family because I know it causes issues. But sometimes when you're going for Fuliza or you're looking for something like 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, a family could help you with that. Even not just borrowing, somebody could actually help you. But if you don't ask, how do you get the help? So sometimes before you go for this Fuliza, ask yourself, have you exhausted the other options available? And what deals are there in the market? What options are there in the market? What interest rates are there in the market? Shop around, be patient, and maybe when you take your time thinking about it, you may end up not actually needing that debt in the first place. And then sometimes if you have any investment and you have any savings, you need to consider using those ones first before you go borrowing. Like I said, it's always a waste of time and energy to try investing money and you have a debt that is high interest. So most of the time, whatever you are earning from the market or from whatever it is you're investing in is basically eaten by the debt. And remember, investing is not guaranteed, but the debt is guaranteed. You will always pay the debt, but you will always not get the returns you need from a particular investment. So sometimes if you have any savings or any investments and you have a debt, I would rather you do that analysis and decide, what should I do? Should you take your investments and clear your debts so that you're in a position whereby you are at zero? I always say you are much richer if you're at zero net worth with no debt than if you are very high net worth with a lot of debts. For me, I would rather be no debts at zero net worth than with lots of debts and I have a fake net worth, which can go down anytime auctioneers come knocking on my door. So what I always say is you need to consider what is the most important thing. Should I clear my debts first and then start this journey, or what do I do? But if you have a debt that you believe is very low interest, doesn't affect you in any way, it's a good debt, that's a different situation. So these are some of the things I want you to consider. Ask yourself these questions before you make any commitment to any kind of debt. So this could help you in deciding, okay, should I borrow more? Should I borrow money? Do I need it? It will help you in making that decision much better. It will help you in borrowing in a responsible manner. So guys, thank you so much. I hope this helps you in making a decision if you want to increase the amount of Fuliza people are borrowing every day, or you want to be out of that statistic and basically take back control of your life. These lines are supposed to guide you on how to borrow in a responsible manner. These questions are supposed to guide you on how to borrow in a responsible manner. And trust you me, one day you look back and you realize, you know what, it's a good decision you made if you decided not to be in that cycle of debt. Thank you so much guys, and I hope this is helpful. Drop a like if it is, subscribe and share. Thank you and see you in the next video. Freeze a party coming, move around like first rush when the school is out, when the booze is up, when the